Welcome back to the Keiser Report. I'm Max Keiser. Time now to turn to anti-fracking activist Tina Rothery, a.k.a. Tina-Louise. Tina, welcome to the Keiser Report.
Thrilled to be here.
It's great to have you on. Now, tell us first how you learned about fracking and why you are against fracking.
I live in Blackpool, so it's where the only incident of fracking has actually taken place in this country, and that happened in 2011. It caused 2 minor earth tremors, but yet Quadrilla decided that they would keep on drilling and pushing that fracking fluid into the fault for a full 6 weeks afterwards until it was suspended because they thought it might have something to do with the earthquakes. They still never actually publicly said we did that. But it's accepted that that was the cause of the earthquakes. In the meantime, we were all getting literature through our doors that was saying things like, oh, this is brilliant, it's natural gas, it's going to bring down energy prices, it'll be good for us, it's going to bring jobs. And it just sounded very empty. There were empty promises of and providing there are gold standard regulations, provided this happens, and based on things that weren't necessarily foreseeable, they told us it was safe. So we looked into it, well, I looked into it, and I couldn't find anything I believed in the brochure. And so I went and found a group that got together, and there was a small pocket of resistance in Blackpool, 6 people in a small park, and that was called Residents' Action on Fylde Fracking. And that was one of the first 2 groups in the area. We're now 20 groups strong in our region and 180 groups strong in the country, and we grow by at least 1 to 2 groups every week. So the earthquake risk, and we'll get to that in a second, is part of the fracking story. Of course, the economics of fracking are horrible. Yep. It takes more energy to frack than you get out of the ground. It takes more money to frack than you generate in economic activity on the other side. It's purely a white elephant. It's a boondoggle, just a gift to, I guess, Quadrilla and these other companies. We don't get it, though. We don't understand that, because we look at it and we say, right, well, clearly, financially, this is not a great proposition. You know, it's not something that, I mean, Lord Brown, head of Quadrilla, has already said, no, it won't bring down energy prices. And in the States, there are some companies that are starting up now where it'll cost them $120 or $150 to produce $1's worth. Yeah, so what is the point? Why?
It creates enormous fees for Quadrilla and these other firms and the bankers, and they create bond offerings that they sell, and they get a lot of money up front. But the short-term, medium, and long-term economics don't work at all. They will add debt to the UK's economy, which is one of the most indebted economies in the world. It'll add substantial debt to the UK economy, and that's masked to the effect that they can keep interest rates at these low levels until such time as they can't, and then suddenly they'll realize that this has been an enormous boondoggle. But you mentioned the earthquake problem of the fracking, which I guess is the most immediate, visceral risk to fracking. When we look at a state like Texas and Oklahoma in the U.S., these are big pro-oil states in the UK, but they're terrified. 22,000% increase in earthquakes with the fracking, and now even they want to get rid of it because this is obviously on a geological basis, suicide.
I think there's only so far you can go with saying, well, financially this is great, so these people will do it. And there's this, and I spoke to John Ashton, who's an ex-climate change diplomat, and he said it's implied inevitability that they rely on, which is, I keep hearing people say, well, it's just going to happen anyway, there's nothing you could do to stop it, which strikes me as a rather spineless thing to do in a democracy, where in theory we should have the ability to say, hey, come on, let's see reason and sense. This is like predicting manslaughter in the future, because it's what they'll leave behind. And also, we know Quadrilla Resources, for instance, aside from being run by Lord Brown, who is ex-BP and ex-Department of Energy and Climate Change, and was key in making appointments to the DEC. You know, the DEC said earlier this year... Department of Energy and Climate Change. And the DEC earlier this year said that there would be 16,000 to 32,000 jobs in this industry. And yet, when the Prime Minister spoke, he said 74,000 jobs. And he got that figure from the Centrica group. So why is our Prime Minister now being the mouthpiece for Centrica?
It's not about jobs, because if it was about jobs, they would just reopen the coal fields. And that would be a way to increase jobs. It's equally ecologically horrific, and it's also economically unsustainable. But if they wanted jobs, they don't have to give them to Quadrilla. They could actually give them to people in the north, and they would have the earthquake risk. Yeah. But of course, it's not about jobs. So clearly, the Prime Minister is lying through his teeth, as he often does. But let's talk about another alternative to this energy situation here. We've talked about that fracking makes no sense economically. Meanwhile, in the UK, there's the Trillion Fund. They've crowdfunded £5 million worth of wind projects and solar projects where people are putting up small amounts of cash and they get an income, 6% on their money.
Yeah.
On a wind project or a solar project. So here you have a fracking, like negative interest rates. It takes money out of the economy and destroys the ecology. Or you could put money into a wind or solar project where people get 5 or 6% on their money. So why is Westminster, are they just, why do they
But I think one of the problems with that is it's like we constantly see wind farm applications being turned down because they're an eyesore. I was in a cab earlier and the guy's like, yeah, but they're such an eyesore. I'm like, an eyesore? Because there's a wind farm in your line of vision, that's very distressing. But why is it less distressing that there's a shale gas rig burning methane venting methane, and they've got like those pipes? We're going to look like Texas in Lancashire for a start. I mean, they want 800 wells where we are.
But I don't understand the mentality of the British person. They want, like Spain, they're bringing in negative interest rates, like Cyprus. They just take money out of your account. And they'll do that in the UK. HSBC, Barclays, and Royal Bank of Scotland already have this on the drawing board. They're going to charge you to keep money in the bank.
It sounds like we live in Disneyland.
Or you can have a solar project or a wind project where you get a check for 5 to 6% a year. So the average British person is saying, no, I don't want the income, mate. I want the government to steal my money. I mean, I know this is a nation of pedophiles, but this has gone too far. Does it extend to everyone's day-to-day existence? They don't feel comfortable unless they're getting raped by this government? Is that the bottom line?
It certainly feels that way, yes. I think that one of the biggest problems we have is a media problem, because it's all well and good saying about the Trillion Fund. I bumped into that by going on Twitter, and then I met the chap, and I thought it was a brilliant idea and a brilliant project. And the same with Solar Century. They're doing some great work. However, we don't, as the average British public, don't get to hear about that. We get the BBC and ITV and everyone else just cramming down our throats that shale gas is going to be good for us. It's a bridging thing. It's a stepping stone to a renewable future. And without discussing the renewable future, they've just revised the figures in the States. I think I can't remember the name of the study. It was a study done earlier this year, and it says that there's about 26 years worth of shale gas in America. 26 years, what was the point? You might as well assume the cupboard is already bare and prepare for that. You know, I mean, it just makes sound sense as, you know, basic housekeeping that you would say, have we got enough energy? No, it's got to run out in 26 years. Let's start planning ahead for that.
Well, that 26 years is overstated. The average project is only a few years. Of the dozens and dozens of fracking projects, less than 5% are actually generating any meaningful returns at all, and those are very short-lived.
And they have to keep downsizing what their estimates are. They did that with the South Downs here. They came up with this huge estimate. And they mess with the figures and the way they word it, too. It's all about word games. They'll say there's X trillions of cubic litres underneath the ground, and then they'll say, but the recoverable amount is somewhere between 1 and 7%.
In California, they said that they had this enormous fracked oil project, and they recently revised what they realized they were able to yield from this project down by 96%.
Yeah.
So, in other words, it was a hoax.
You see, for us in the anti-fracking movement, the way we've tackled it, first of all, we tried to appeal to the wisdom of our government. We tried to appeal to our democracy to listen to us. And in the end, we discovered that setting up a protection camp, slowing trucks down, made more sense than anything else, because then you'd read in the investor press, UK public shale gas opposition deters investors. Because if we can't hit our government where we need to, and no one's listening to us, then at least we can do is deter the investors or make them realise that for every day's drilling, we're going to delay every one of those trucks. We're going to be under the drills. We're going to do everything we can to prevent those pads being built. Have you heard what's happened in Lancashire this week? It's astounding. There's they have 2 planning applications in, and it's for Rosica and for Preston New Road, and it's for a full-on fracking site, not exploratory. They've now taken a Section 6 and squatted the field. That's not us. It's not the activists. And a Section 6 law is a law that squatters use to hold a space. And, a security firm working on behalf of Quadrilla has taken the field where the pad will go and put in a Section 6, and there are 3 tents and 3 burly security guards holding it. That's what we do. But they've taken the field. I mean, how drastic is it? So now investors in Centrica and Quadrilla and Riverstone Holdings have shares in a squat in a field in Lancashire.
Right, and let's be clear. The economics are horrible. This will not create energy security. Price of energy will go up, not down, because all the money printed to subsidize this business is going to end up forcing prices for food and everything else up higher. Let's talk about the media for a second. You mentioned the media, the BBC. They have this impartiality rule, which means that in the case of fracking, if it's 100% understood to be a ridiculously overpriced boondoggle, and not one person of any credible nature can debate this, they are still forced to bring in any clown from the street. They'll bring in a monkey. and dress him up as an executive as being the other side of the debate.
Yes.
Why can't they just say that there is no other side of this debate? It's a boondoggle. We're the BBC. It's the British Broadcasting Corporation, not the Quadrilla Broadcasting Corporation.
It might as well be.
Why can't they be honest about it? Why do they have to lie?
But we see that too. We said this should never have been. Everyone talks about the great fracking debate. It was never a debate. To us, it was a bad idea that landed on the table and should have been pushed off straight away. We don't want to debate it. We want it removed from the list of choices.
Because there is no debate, because it doesn't make any ecological sense or economic sense. It only makes sense if you're an executive of Quadrilla and you're getting this huge fee to put forward this boondoggle.
But you know what, I think a couple of things that are on our side, and we feel like we're actually making huge progress. Because what we did was little tiny public meetings all over the country. And we didn't even make them scary. We just said, this is the process of shale gas extraction. Can you see any problems with that? You turn around and the whole room's jaws were down. You know, this is such an obviously dangerous thing. And it's an obviously dangerous thing, not just in the immediate future, but in what they leave behind. And we know that with Quadrilla Resources, for instance, there are also Boland Resources and Balcom Resources. They have all these other little companies with hardly any money. And those companies are the ones that are going to operate that drill site. And then they've got to go away. And then what happens in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? Is someone coming back to check the integrity of what they left behind? Who's going to pop back in 10 years?
Bankruptcy.
Yeah,
the pattern in the U.S. is once they've raped the country and destroyed it, they declare bankruptcy and walk away. So these firms, after they destroy the UK countryside, I mean, where's Monty Don going to go to do his gardening shows? You know, Monty Don is the nation's top gardener.
He is indeed.
He's going to be in a dirt yard being fracked to death, you know, talking about getting fracked up the schwing, and that's not going to be much of a show for Monty Don, isn't it? You think, I thought Britain was a nation of gardeners, with all the roses and the strawberries. I mean, all that stuff's going to be fracked to death.
We stopped being gardeners, and we stopped being shopkeepers, and we became City of London. That's what we became.
Financialized, you know, pimps and for Barclays and HSBC. It's disgusting.
And they dumped 2 million gallons of radioactive toxic waste from the fracking site into the Manchester Ship Canal before they changed the law and said, actually, no, we shouldn't do that.
All right, so how do people get in touch with you if they want to help stop this boondoggle?
Come to our website for the Lancashire one, which is stopfyldefracking.org.uk. We highly recommend another site, which is frackoff.org. That's frack-off.org for all the best resources, research documents.
That's easy to remember, frackoff.org.
That is quite easy. And then also the Talk Fracking tour that Vivienne Westwood just organised, that we went on a 5-city tour. That was fantastic. She does amazing work. And she said one of the lines that I think was the most important was when she said, you know, they talk about energy security. How secure do you feel? Do you think this company is here to make sure that energy gets sold to you as a British person? Because it's not. It'll go onto a European market. It's not ours. We didn't grow it. We didn't harvest it. And it's not going to be given to us as a gift.
All right, Tina, we got to go. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks so much.
And that's going to do it for this edition of the Keiser Report with me, Max Keiser, and Stacey Herbert. I'd like to thank our guest, Tina-Louise. If you'd like to get in touch, tweet us at Keiser Report. Until next time, bye, y'all.